If there was ever a point in time for Marvel to tell us how out of touch they were with their own IP, it was this show called Ironheart. Now, this show was supposed to come out a few years ago, which probably would have fit this, agenda-driven mold that they were promoting back then. But times have changed, and what we got now was a show that should have been shelved and probably should have saved face because now it is just getting torn apart. And that's not to say that people are purposely and intentionally review bombing it. It's just a bad and poorly written show. The creators of this show are very out of touch. It's like they haven't read any of the comics, or maybe they've read snippets based on Wikipedia, but they've never watched the first two Iron Mans or maybe even Age of Ultron at this point. The fact that the show starts off with Riri Williams saying that she needs money, she needs resources, she's not Tony Stark, she's not privileged, she's not a billionaire. But what's the excuse? Because she's supposed to be this prodigy, this genius that in the comics, Tony Stark saw great potential in her, and that's why he basically supported her at a young age. We all know from the first Iron Man movie, Tony Stark is blasted and gets abducted, almost dies, and has to build an Iron Man suit with a box of scraps, as Obadiah Stane tells one of his men that says, well, I'm not Tony Stark. Sure, Riri Williams again is not Tony Stark, but that doesn't mean she can't go to her stepfather's shop to build an Iron Man suit or Ironheart suit that can kind of do the same thing, or better, as she wants to do it in this show where yes, now her suit is powered by solar power. And to make matters worse for Riri, let's not forget Ivan Vanko from Iron Man 2, because he was also able to build an arc reactor and become Whiplash to confront Iron Man on the racetrack. And there again, he posed to be a little bit of a formidable foe, at least for that small window of time. But again, what is Riri's excuse to do something that she is very well capable of doing, or so we're led to believe, but she just makes mistake after mistake after mistake? And you might say, well, she's young, so that's what people do. But is that the case if you're a genius and you're a prodigy? Aren't you too smart to be doing those types of things? Maybe, but I digress. The fact that she joins this rebel gang of, well, someone who is actually called Clown, which is just too ironic, someone called Slug that is very much changed from the comics and now looks like Dennis Rodman's cosplay. We've got, the Bash brothers. Oh, I'm sorry. They're actually two girls that seemingly can take down any adult male with ease, throwing them, flopping them. It almost makes me think that, and this isn't a diss to wrestling by any means, but it's like wrestling is more believable with how things are scripted in that than what I saw in the show between those two women easily taking down any sort of man that they come across. Riri also says she wants to build something to, protect people. That's actually something that Tony Stark said in Age of Ultron, where he wants to build a suit of armor around the world to protect the world from existential threats. And obviously, we saw that existential threat with Thanos. Oh, again, Riri will never, ever, ever amount to MCU Tony Stark because he was the stoic leadership in giving his own life to erase evil from existence, or at least the at front evil with Thanos and his army. The characters lack depth. They lacked meaning. They lack any sort of emphasis that says, you know what? This is a well-written character, or this character that we've seen through 3 episodes has already been well established. There's none of that. And the fact that this show is only 6 episodes doesn't really give us a lot to connect with in terms of, this show might actually turn out to be really well written, because so far, halfway through, it's total garbage. The dialogue is another issue I have with this show because it's so sloppy. It just sounds lazy. And there's nothing about it that just makes you think, oh, that's something that real conversation would happen between, this genre of folks, especially when Natalie comes into the picture. And yes, they allude to the fact that Gary, her stepfather, and Natalie, Riri's best friend, die in a drive-by shootout, or rather a drive-by that happens at the shop that her stepfather owns. But when we first see Natalie, this AI, it's visually projected. Now you might think she has a computer there, that's where the audio is coming from. But there again, What sort of proof do we have that actually says we see this holographic projection that's talking back to Riri? Where's the audio coming from? Even outside of her own home. When she's in the street in episode 2, she's talking to her, and you think, oh, maybe it's coming through the suit, and that's just kind of what we're seeing. I know you could just kind of make excuses or try to justify things, but there again, it just falls flat. I think this falls out of the suspension of disbelief here. And in that moment, after they rob this first place, which is just very stupid, the way the hood is in the car with this lady who, has her sign over the rights and blah, blah, blah. They get rich, and it's just also stupid. But the fact that the AI suffers a panic attack and has PTSD is incompetent. How can AI have a panic attack? Because what? They come from Riri Williams' brain wavelengths that somehow create her? How does that even translate to be possible? Not the fact that, oh, this is some sort of new AI tech, but it's the fact that she didn't live the same experience that Natalie did when Natalie died. All Natalie is an algorithm that Riri has created. But she doesn't even know how to extrapolate that to her mother when her mother, inadvertently sees Natalie inside the house through the TV screen and then asks Riri, can you make one of Gary, her husband? She can't even say, Mom, that's not how this works. And I don't even know how I did this in the first place, which there again, if you're a genius, you should know how you did this in the first place. And then she kind of just deals with it and is okay with it happening and, kind of moves forward. And yes, when she's in her suit and talks to Natalie, just like Tony would do with Friday and Jarvis. But there again, there was never anything that was projected to see them in a full body, because even Jarvis was just a voice in, Tony's head, so to speak, but then later became Vision, but that's obviously, filled with vibranium and whatnot. And I almost wish that Ultron would come here and just erase this whole show. That would be wonderful. It's just very cringy to say like, oh, are we the Ocean's 11 crew or are we the Sopranos? You're neither. And in fact, I think it's a bit of an insult, especially to the Sopranos, but to the Ocean's 11 crew, because you are far from being that group of people, because they actually would successfully pull off crimes. They failed miserably because not only did Riri Williams leave a man behind who caught on to her, left him for dead. So she's committed multiple crimes, basically inadvertently killed someone that was Parker's, right-hand man. And she also has put Joe Stain in a very uncomfortable place, and we'll get more to him in just a second here, by leaving this bio-fresh laser that she uses to cut off part of the hood behind when she gets into a tussle. And obviously, this is not going to bode well for what's about to come in the last 3 episodes. Speaking of Joe Stain, Obadiah Stain's son, who they didn't have a very good relationship. And so what does Joe do? Well, he leaves him, or the ashes, I should say, of Obadiah in a cookie jar that is spilt on the floor when Riri is asked not to do anything with it, but she goes, oh my God, what's this? And boom, on the floor. So, and as she tries to blackmail Joe, Joe in turn does the same thing because they have an idea of working together. And when Joe says, why did you do it? Why did you create the iron suit? Riri says, well, because I can. Okay. Were you a fan of Tony Stark? Were you a fan of Iron Man? Nothing. No homage, no respect, no, well, he kind of, paved the way. He was a bit of a pioneer. He was a superhero. He gave his life to protect Earth. Not once, not twice, but let's say 3 different times through the Avenger movies. Not to mention, if she was lacking resources, why didn't she just stay her ass in Wakanda with the new Black Panther, Shuri? Probably made him the most sense. Take your internship there and just maybe help figure out what you want to do at that point. It's just an insult, the fact that Marvel decided to make this show and not give plenty of other deserving characters. And if you want to say, oh, well, let's put a black character on the market here again, well, why not go back to Luke Cage? You went back to, Daredevil. Or why not Storm? Why not Bishop? It's the fact that they were trying to send a message. And again, a couple of years ago, probably would have fit into that agenda, but now it doesn't. And now that's why it's basically falling flat on its face and should be casted into oblivion. And as much as I want to say Joe Stain might be the one character that is seemingly interesting, what is a deal breaker in my book is the fact that he starts crying in the car while listening and singing Alanis Morissette as a 36-year-old single man. That's just depressing as all hell. It is just beta cuck material. There's nothing masculine about it. And the fact that he kind of just looks a little emo as well. Why put him in the show? What idea did you have thinking it would be a perfect fit for this show? If you just combine everything I've previously said in a nice little bad looking bubble here, what does the show exemplify so far through 3 episodes? Bad writing, flat characters, and a complete misunderstanding of the legacy it's trying to honor. You're not iconic. You're a fraud. The suspension of disbelief is gone. Even in a fictional superhero world, this show doesn't fit and it shouldn't even exist. It's an embarrassment. And honestly, I feel bad for the actors that kind of got dragged into this, honestly. And it should have just stayed on the shelf. Kevin Feige thought it was a good idea. Maybe he'll actually finally understand that he is maybe washed and just completely chalked the MCU at this point. If you've made it this far through the video, I do appreciate it. Let me know in the comments what you thought. You know, if you have watched this or if you've watched what other people have said, which I know a lot of people are talking about it because this is like the hot commodity. And I wasn't there to really talk about the Acolyte because I didn't want to put myself through it. But now I'm putting myself through the Ironheart series here, which is only 2 weeks instead of, 8 long weeks with the Acolyte. Thank God. But it's like, what did we expect here from the show? We all knew it was going to do poorly. And yet we have plenty of people shilling super hard that the show is amazing. Even IGN gave it a 5, which kind of speaks for itself. And I don't care the fact that Robert Downey Jr. decided to, hop on a quick video call on his phone and say, oh yeah, support the show. It's amazing. Riri is awesome. You're not even in the show, dude. You have zero connection to the character that you had all the connection for, and the fact that Riri was even highlighted in the comics was because of Tony Stark. If you enjoyed the video, I would appreciate it if you hit that like button, subscribe, it's free, hit the bell for notifications every time I upload a video, and go live on YouTube. Drop a comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll catch you next time for the next 3 episodes here on the Plot Strikes Back of Ironheart. Cheers.